Sudhanshu Mittal, Michel repeatedly said that the majority of the money that was paid as bribes was paid in Italy. Now, if he is to be believed, the corollary that flows from that is very simple. What he is saying is that the real corruption was happening in Italy. Secondly, the real corruption was within Augusta-Westland rather than between Augusta-Westland and the Indian government. How do you respond to that? That it was an internal round-tripping of Augusta-Westland funds from one Augusta-Westland pocket to another Augusta-Westland pocket. It wasn't really Augusta-Westland into Indian hands.
I would take it forward from where Mr. Varadarajan has left. He has said why the UPA government did not cooperate if that was the truth. I would take it one more step forward. If that would have been the truth, do you think they would have cancelled the tender? I mean, does it take too much of intelligence to even conclude this? The fact is that Orsi was arrested. The fact is that there was evidence of money which had been given here in India. And after having investigated all that, that is when Mr. Antony's ministry cancelled it. So if the money would not have been paid to the Indian establishment here during the UPA regime, do you think the tender would have been cancelled? No.
Okay.
So, as I said, you see, here is a gentleman who's a prime accused, and he has to deflect attention. He has to create stories. He has to create a web. He has to confuse so that the real beneficiaries of this are not punished. Lastly, I just heard Mr. Singhvi said he cannot be taken on his face value. Thank you, Mr. Singhvi. I am so grateful that you've acknowledged this, because all this while the Congress has been using the testimony of Mr. Michel to claim innocence.
Okay.
They have said, no. Look, he has not named Sonia Gandhi. No, he's not named Manmohan Singh ji. No, he's not named anybody.
Just a moment. Let me go to Abhishek Singhvi. Abhishek Singhvi, earlier today, Randeep Singh Surjewala.
Let me answer.
Earlier today, Randeep Singh Surjewala, who is your party's head of communication, said, and he said this on television, that Congress does not need Michel's defense. But the line of argument that I've put to you accepts that bribes were paid, but concludes that they were paid primarily, if not largely, to Italy and to people within Italy, and not to people in India, and therefore, presumably, not to people in your party or your former government. If that's the line of argument Michel is taking, and Siddharth Varadarajan finds it at least 50% plausible, but not maybe totally convincing, surely you should not be so dismissive of Michel. He is giving you a line of argument that lets Congress people off the hook. It may hook the Tyagis, but it puts the onus on Italians. So should you be so dismissive?
Well, Michel certainly has India Today to thank for good projection today, but Congress certainly is not relying on Michel, nor is thanking him. Let me make 2 or 3 things clear. What I said in the opening question you asked me, Karan, was very clear. There is no part of Michel that I am accepting, relying upon, etc. Second, there is a complete misapprehension in the mind of my good friend Mr. Trivedi if he thinks that we relied on Michel. Not a word, as far as I know, nobody, certainly not me. What we read from were verified testimonies, cross-examined testimonies in the judgment. That is different. Yes. I'm sorry, I meant Mr. Mittal, not Mr. Trivedi, I meant Mr. Mittal, I'm sorry. This was quoting from the judgment, not from Mr. Michel. So please don't give me that impression. Thirdly, in any event, Karan, a statement by a person who's residing in England, whether he's trying to avoid the investigative agencies of India, Italy and England or not is a separate question, which has not been part of any trial proceedings. What is the value?
Okay. But let me stop you there.
Unless he's inculpatory and he says, I took money, you took money, there's no value otherwise.
Just wanted a correction. He's actually not residing in London at the moment. The interview was recorded in Abu Dhabi. Pinaki Mishra, let's come to what Christian Michel said about his father, Wolfgang Michel. He says that his father was a major arms dealer with close contacts with the government of India during the 70s and 80s. He says he put the Indian government in touch with the Libyans and separately also with the Saudi Arabians. Now, does that suggest, as BJP sources have been saying earlier, that the Michel family has old links with Congress and therefore perhaps possibly in particular with the Gandhis, and therefore there is some sort of direct connect between Christian Michel and the Gandhis.
But Karan, in the same breath, he also says, look, my father and I have not been on talking terms for so many years. We have been locked in litigation. I haven't inherited any of his assets in terms of, his contacts or his legacy here. So I'm not sure that any of this, frankly, is either here or there. It's really got to be this case specific. The facts are, before the investigating agencies. They have to find out monies have come, then monies have come through, some monies seem to have come through banking channels as well. I don't know why it's taking them this long with, so much interrogation going on over so many days to nail this. It's inexplicable.
But before you go on to the nailing of the CBI, come back to my question. Are you saying that therefore the details that he's revealed of his father and his father's contacts with earlier Indian governments, the fact that he's put them in touch with the Libya's and Saudi Arabians, does not establish a link between the Michel family and the Congress, and therefore does not establish a link between Christian Michel and the Congress?
Much of this is firstly unverified. Much of this is unverifiable. We don't even know who they were dealing with in the 70s and 80s. This is all ipsy-dixy. It's all, from his mouth. I don't know how much can be believed. It just shows that basically his family's been old players in the Indian defense industry. I wouldn't, outright discount what he said, but I don't know how much can be verified and what relevance it has. Because I don't think there's any connection with the Gandhi family that anybody is imputing.
Let's then raise my take on Michel. You heard the reactions coming into that big interview, and this is where I believe the case stands. Christian Michel is a prime accused in the Augusta Westland deal.